Yo, Tempest Wing here. Those of you who don't know me, I am the sole creator, main character, director, and editor of the Rift Herald, which, if you don't know, is the premier NA LCS podcast. And I'm coming in with a special video, something I haven't done in the past, but we're looking at week 5 of the LCS being on patch 8.3, which has been live on the server for about a week, but this will be the first week that is on this patch, and I am here to address a couple changes with mainly champions, but also runes that, oh wow, they actually didn't change any items as far as I can see on this patch. But yeah, we're going to talk about the changes that were made to champions, the buffs, the nerfs, and see how that'll affect the coming meta. So let's start it off. Number 1, Azir. His Q is the cooldown is increased early ranks. So at rank 1, it'll be at 15 seconds instead of 11, so 4 seconds longer. But by the time it gets to rank 5, it'll be the same, which is 5 seconds. And then the other little change is that they make his soldiers draw minion aggro, which seems pretty fucking annoying. Looking at Azir in week 4 of the LCS, he was picked twice, banned 6 times, so 80% priority. I'd say Azir will definitely see less play because of this. I know the minion aggro thing, they did that with a lot of champions last patch, like Cassiopeia. I'm struggling to think of other ones. I believe Kassadin, but Rise. And we're still seeing those champs played, so I think we'll still see Azir, but albeit not as much. If we look at the mid lane pool, I mean, he garners a lot of bans, but I think next week 8.3. I mean, I've been talking a lot. If you've been watching the Rift Herald, I've been talking a lot about champions like Talia, Galio, Rise. I think those will probably still be at the forefront of the meta. Maybe Orianna is in there as well, but I think Azir will probably see at least one pick. It's interesting that it's been banned more than it's been picked. So that means that people don't want to play against it. So maybe we'll see some bans, and maybe not necessarily any picks. But yeah, but I think this will make Azir weaker. Getting back to the whole cooldown thing, because early game his lane shoving pressure will not be as good. But when I see Azir really come online, it's in those late game team fights. So he basically just has to get to level 9, and then he's probably pretty much fine. So I think late game Azir will still be good because they didn't nerf any of his damage or anything, just the cooldown. So yeah. All right, moving on to Jarvan 4. Jarvan 4, they decreased his base armor by 4 from 38 to 34. I feel like that will not change too much. He will be slightly weaker and will not have as strong of an early clear. In week 4 of the NA LCS, he was picked once, banned twice, so 30% priority. So didn't see very much Jarvan this week, which I thought was interesting because I thought that I think Jarvan is a pretty solid pick in the meta right now. Sort of almost has fallen out of favor, been replaced by the likes of Jax and Skarner, which we haven't seen any Skarner until last week, and then Jax has sort of been in there as a fringe pick. So he's sort of already losing favor, at least in NA. I know in other regions he's been picked as well, but you're still seeing Sejuani as the main jungle pickup, which I'll get into later, since she got nerfed as well. But I think we'll see. I don't think this will change Jarvan that much. I think he's already sort of maybe on his way out of the meta, if not a fringe pick at the moment, at least in NA context. So we'll see. I mean, they're nerfing Jarvan and Sedge, so it'll be interesting to see if we see more Skarner, more Jax, more Zac, more Camille, picks such as those. But I don't think this will really impact Jarvan that much. But I thought I'd mention it just because he has been seen in the meta thus far. Now moving on to probably the most impactful change on this patch that I saw, Kog'Maw uh, nerfing the max health on his W from it starts at the same amount, but instead of going up, or it starts at 3%, and instead of going up to 7%, it only goes up to 5% max health. And Kog'Maw now is like a pretty good champion once you get Rage Blade. Like he's not even super late game anymore, so like he's a pretty good pick at the moment because he's able to shred through these tanks. But I think this is a pretty heavy nerf because think about how many auto attacks Kog'Maw can get off if he's got a couple items while this W is up, and the 7% to 5% doesn't seem like a lot, but that will really add up if he's free autoing and has several attack speed items. In week 4 of the NA LCS, he was picked 3 times, banned twice, so 50% priority. Yeah, so basically, I think that at the moment, Ezreal is the most picked AD carry with 8 picks, 2 bans, so he's actually 100%. You have some, and then Kalista is in there too with 3 picks, 7 bans. So I think you'll see really these 2 picks sort of take the forefront. A lesser pick is Trist. I think Trist may become the more solid, like sort of or long range tank busting AD carry. She might replace Kog'Maw in the meta because I feel like to a degree they do serve that purpose as sort of the like I said, like the long range sit in the back scale up kind of fighter, whereas Ezreal is more of a poke sort of champion, and Kallista's more of a mid game, and she also has the objective control as well. So I think maybe Trist will come up and replace Kog'Maw. But yeah, I think we'll see some Kog'Maw, but this is a pretty hefty nerf. So I mean, who knows? But I think he'll fall out of favor. Next is Rise. This isn't really much of a nerf to Rise as it is to the stopwatch. Well, yeah, it's a nerf to Rise. Basically, you can't start stopwatch / Zanya's and then use it in your ult and then ult away. That will cancel the ult, or what'll it do exactly? Yeah, it'll cancel the ult basically as if he had been CC'd. Okay, so yeah. Honestly, in week 4, I mean, I'm basing this a lot off of week 4 just because even between week 3 and week 4, we saw the meta evolve a bit, even though it was all in the same patch, 8.2. But I feel like people are already starting to like practice practice on this patch. So I didn't see as many Rise ult escape plays as I had in weeks 1 through 3. So I think Rise will still be a really good pick. He was picked 3 times, banned 6, so 90% priority in week 4. And yeah, I think, as I was saying earlier, I think Rise will be one of the main mid lane staples going forward. Moving on to Sejuani, the Q cooldown decreased early game. I think so. Basically, it's at max rank, it'll still be 11 seconds, but instead of starting at 13 seconds, it will start at 17 seconds, 4 seconds longer. Honestly, still feel like this doesn't change that much because in most early game scenarios, you probably would only have your Q up once anyways. Like even if you're level 5 or 6, it's going to be at 14 seconds, whereas it used to be at 12 seconds. I mean, maybe if you're in some really extended fight, you can get that back up again, but once you're like Azir, once you're level 9, or actually wait, you're not maxing Q. Actually, yeah. I didn't think about that. Yeah, because you max Q lasts 4 seconds, so having that window. Yeah, I could see in mid to late game fights, if you still don't have a couple points in Q and you're having prolonged fights, you might not be able to get it up the second time. I still think Sejuani has so much reliable CC And she's just like a pretty all around good jungler. I still think she'll be picked. Um, like I was talking about with Jarvan, I mean, we saw Skarner and Jax kind of spring up there as, I mean, the only champions picked more than once, which is interesting, are Jax, Skarner, and Sedge. But I think Zach and Camille are probably also up there with uh, contentious picks, and then the Jarvan as well. But um, yeah, I mean, we may see her. I think she won't be 100. I mean, she was 100% pick ban in week 4. She was picked 7 times, banned 3. So I would say maybe less people will favor her, but I think that's still a solid pick, and I think it's still something to look out for. And there's no way it's completely out of the meta. And then we have Zoe, good old Zoe. They nerfed the cooldown on her Q, which or excuse me, the cooldown on her Q. Rank 1, it's up to 8.5 seconds, and then at rank 5, it's up to 6.5, which is almost once. I mean, it used to be 6.25, so I mean, at max rank, it's still almost as long, almost as short. And yeah, I think this literally changes nothing. Zoe was 100% pick banned 9 times, picked only once, and yeah, I think this is still gonna be 100% pick ban. So that's it for champions. There are other champions that were buffed and nerfed that were not really in the meta, and I didn't cover those because either they were not in the meta and they got nerfed, so they're still not going to be in the meta, or they're not in the meta and they got buffed, and I didn't really think that, like the Lucian buff, I didn't really think that it was good enough to really boost them into the meta. I could be wrong. We'll have to fucking see. But basically, all of these are minor, and I think that they will cause marginal to, I would say no to marginal decrease in play or priority, except for Kog'Maw. I think Kog'Maw took a hit here. So not a huge patch champion wise. And then we'll move on to runes, which this might shake up a bit more because Unsealed Spellbook takes a hit. And basically, when you're getting that CDR, it's going from 25% to 15%, which I think is a good amount. It was interesting. I felt like in weeks 2 and 3 we saw a lot of supports and bot lanes, sometimes both of them running this. But in week 4, I noticed it primarily on the junglers. Even if they weren't swapping out the smite, I guess you still have that reduced cooldown on flash, and you can get that back up. But I think we'll definitely see this less. That seems like a pretty hefty nerf to me. And I think it was sort of already a little out of favor with the old bot lanes. But I'd say the main thing here is probably actually the change to actually change the order. So they swapped Magical Footwear and Biscuit Delivery. Biscuit Delivery used to be in the contraption row, which is the first row with perfect timing, and then Magical Footwear used to be in the second one, which called Tomorrow. So basically, the reason why they did that is they didn't want people running Magical Footwear and Perfect Timing, which is Stopwatch. So they put those in the same row, so you have to choose between them. I think that's smart because personally, I don't run Stopwatch. That's just not me. But I love running Magical Footwear. So and I know that's popular in pro play because yeah, I mean that was the problem, right? Is people, even if they weren't running that inspiration as their primary tree, even if it was their secondary tree, they could still do Perfect Timing Magical Footwear, and that was just like a common thing. So I think this is really good. They also nerfed Perfect Timing and Magical Footwear. So not only can you only take one, but they're both worse. Magical Footwear previously gave you a 50 gold reduction when you upgraded your boots. This is no longer the case. And then Biscuit Delivery, Perfect Timing, it gives 50 less gold in contribution to the next item, and when you sell it, instead of 120 gold, it's 20 gold. I don't think that Perfect Timing was too much, or Stopwatch was too much of a gold sink. I can see why they did that, like especially decreasing the sell value by 100. I don't think that's anything to sneeze at, but I think a lot of people will still run Well, that's the thing. It'll be interesting to see which is prioritized, because I think of the two, they nerfed magical footwear less, and I think that we'll see. I'm just gonna go ahead and make a bold statement. I think we'll see more magical footwear than perfect timing, because since you can't sell it and get that extra 100 gold, magical footwear, you're still getting free boots, mind you. You're not getting the 50 gold reduction, but you're still getting the free boots. And that's, I mean, on some champions, that's just better than to have the stopwatch. And then you sort of just use it and then throw it away, because boots are that's basically free 300 gold. Um, Maybe if you're a champion that is building into a stopwatch item, like I think it's, what is it? I know it's Zanya's, and I believe it also builds into fucking GA, I think. Let me just look that up real quick. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. But yeah, if you're Rise and you're building fucking Zanya's anyways, then yeah, you might get that over the boots. But I think for champions, maybe like bot lane champions, like 80 carries that are all running stopwatch, I think we'll see less of that. So that's my prediction. Okay, yeah, stopwatch builds into Guardian Angel, Gargoyle with Stoneplate, and Zanya's. So maybe if you're building one of those 3 items, you would want that just because you can build it in there. But yeah, so that'll be interesting. And that's it for patch 8.3. This is my first patch video, so thanks for bearing with me. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Let's see, yeah, I mean, it'll be the Rift Herald next week, and then my next patch video will be for 8.4, whenever that is. So yeah, peace.